Everybody's talking at me.
CRN Digital Talk Radio and Chuck Wilder here. I want to go to my guest right now, Chris Orestis, Orestis. I think I have it pretty close. He is a nationally known senior healthcare advocate and expert. He is the CEO of Life Care Funding. Chris is a former life insurance industry lobbyist with a background in long-term care issues. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show, sir. How you doing?
Chuck, great. Thanks for having me, and you pronounced the name perfect.
Oh, that may be a first. Let's see, and the year's almost over. I knew I was going to get something right before 2014. The holiday season, I would imagine that the largest percentage of younger couples don't see their relatives, that frequently during the year. There are some, that see them every single day and every single weekend, but I would just guess that the majority don't see their older relatives or older friends. And today we're going to talk about the fact that, you get together and maybe you're seeing your mom and dad or older people that you haven't been around in months, and there may be signs that they may be not getting the medication they need or the medical attention they need. And we want to talk about some of those warning signs. And I'm going to kind of put it in your ballpark there, sir.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Chuck. And you know what? Your guess is right. This is the time of year when families are getting together. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas is really the biggest time of year for admissions into long-term care. Whether it's a nursing home or a home care company that gets a call to start looking at coming in to help with care at home, an assisted living community, because families do oftentimes live spread out across the country and aren't getting together like they used to in the old days where, everybody grew up a couple blocks away from the house where they were born. Today, families might not see each other for months, and they get together, they have that Thanksgiving dinner, they have Christmas, and they see that there are problems, things that they didn't see before. And there's some definite cues to be looking for. And really, we stress three specific cues you want to be looking for. One is verbal cues, which will give you hints about where we are with memory. And if you're together with mom and dad, and one or both are mixing up people's names, can't keep dates straight, events straight, are talking about things that happened 20 years ago as if it were happening today, that is a definite sign of starting to see cognitive challenges. It could be dementia, could be warning signs of Alzheimer's. So you want to look for those things and don't just shrug them off as, it's a senior, it's a senior moment. Those are clues, don't blow them off.
I think the problem, Chris, is when you get around people that forget things, and they'll say, it really makes me mad because I can't remember that person's name. I'm that way, I'm like 69, and I'll say, what is the name of that? What is that thing they call, when you get dizzy? And somebody will say, I'm taking pills for and I can never remember the name of it, for example.
Sure, no. Oh, yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and that's different than consistently calling, one of your children's name by somebody else's name entirely, or not remembering who your grandkids are when they're standing there in front of you, and really slipping up on that, or talking about a somebody from the past as if they're there now today, and you've been spending time with them. That's a lot different than slipping up a little bit. And you just want to be watching for it, but that's not the only cue. There's also physical cues. You want to look for those things that might show up in the form of rapid weight loss since the last time you got together. Difficulty standing or difficulty with balance, weakness.
Now that is, and that's what I was going at a while ago, and the medical term is vertigo.
Yeah, vertigo is right. When you have a loss of balance, vertigo, and those are signs of not, and there are actually manifestations of both mental and physical when you're seeing some of those clues starting to show up. And again, some of it could be very striking because you might not have seen mom or dad for 6, 7, 8 months, and all of a sudden you're together again, and you're like, wait a minute, things have really changed since the last time we got together.
Chris, we're coming up on a break, but I kind of want you to let the listener know, how much can you pry? I mean, does it determine on how close you are to this person? In other words, if you meet an older person that you haven't been around, maybe not even a relative, 4, 6, 7 months, and you notice they seem like they're getting a little dizzy or unbalanced, is it okay to say, are you taking medication, to get that personal? We're going to find out when we come back. Chris Orestis, nationally known senior health care advocate. He's CEO of Life Care Funding, and that website, by the way, is lifecarefunding.com. lifecarefunding.com. We'll be right back.
Everybody's talking at me.
CRN, Chuck Wilder, my guest, Chris Orestis, CEO of Life Care Funding. And, he's talking about 3 basic things that you need to look for, is like confusion, unstable balance, risk of falling. The one he didn't mention, change in hygiene habits or personality. And just for the break, Chris, I was asking you, how personal can you get? If it's a real close relative, I think people are more at ease, with talking about this. But can you bring one of these 3 things up to an older friend of yours that you haven't seen in a while? How do you approach that?
Well, if you're seeing any of the cues, whether it's the verbal, the physical, or the visual that are tipping you off that there's problems, and quite frankly, the potential for danger for this person to be living on their own, you need to bring it up, but how to bring it up is the question. It's irresponsible to ignore it because you're really talking about somebody's safety and health. Our advice is, 1, don't just jump into it in an abrupt manner and start talking about, maybe we ought to start talking about moving you into a nursing home.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get their defenses up real fast. And what we advise is it's a conversation to ease into, and really you want to follow 3 steps. Step 1 is, usually this involves more than one family member. There's going to be siblings and spouses. And so you're going to want to all be on the same page first. Before somebody jumps up and just starts talking before everybody else is on the same page.
Yeah, all of a sudden you've got an argument, hey, leave Dad alone or leave Grandpa alone, He's been stumbling like that ever since he started drinking. Yeah.
Right. You need to have this conversation first among the siblings and their spouses, because when you start moving down the world of long-term care, it's a family journey, and everybody's going to be impacted, everybody's going to be involved. And one of the things that we always stress is, if you get everybody on the same page, which you should, then it's time to also take on jobs. Who potentially is going to be nominated as the point person to do the research, and who lives closer?
Page 1, Chris, page 1 would have to be, do you need to see a doctor about this? And then page 2, I think, would be, are you going to need some long-term care, or, possibly even getting into a home eventually? Wouldn't you say? But number 1 is, let's find out if there's really something wrong with you?
Yeah, once everybody's on that same page and agreed to start to put in place an action plan, then that's really where you have to go. Number 1, understand what the forms of care are, and then what kind of care is appropriate for the situation, and whether it's a doctor or a professional geriatric care manager who would actually specialize in these circumstances. And we advise to bring in that objective expertise. A geriatric care manager can come into the home, sit down, do an evaluation, map out and lay out the options of what kind of care is appropriate, where you could access it, and then, of course, the big question that always ultimately comes up, it's the big elephant in the room, how do we pay for it?
Yeah, and with Obamacare, uncertainty, Medicare, what's going to take care of what's the umbrella? Is it mostly Medicare that this falls under?
Most people have no idea about the differences between Medicare and Medicaid, what covers what, how to access it, how to qualify for it. Medicare will cover the first 90 to 100 days of care in a rehabilitation environment if you've been discharged from a hospital. Medicaid will cover long-term care services primarily in a nursing home if you qualify based on income and asset. In essence, you have to be at the poverty level, and so many seniors, particularly middle-class seniors, get caught in that circumstance when they're confronted with what we're talking about. how do we spend down, get rid of assets to make ourselves impoverished and a ward of the state so we can get onto Medicaid to pay for this stuff. And that, unfortunately, is the umbrella that covers most long-term care in this country. 75-80% of long-term care is covered by Medicaid. And you know who's paying for that? You, me, all your listeners. That's taxpayer dollars that's paying for Medicaid and Medicare.
Any other financing options other than being one of the 2 lucky winners in a lotto or something?
Right. Well, you know, one of the things that we do, that we specialize in, is we work with families who have a life insurance policy, and they can convert that policy and turn the death benefit, a portion of it, into a living benefit in the form of a long-term care benefit plan that will pay for their care. Some people have bought long-term care insurance. Some people have savings, or a home that they would sell. It is always preferable to be private pay and be paying for long-term care through those kinds of means as opposed to Medicare and Medicaid. If you're private pay, you can choose the form of care you want. You can stay at home care. You can go into an assisted living community. If you go on to Medicaid, you can't make it. You're not making the choices anymore. You're a ward of the state. You're at the poverty level, and the state now is making the choices for you.
So if someone goes to your website, can they generally get just about all their questions answered?
Yeah, we always say there's 2 good places to go. One, obviously, our website has a lot of good information. There's a lot of policy on there. I mean, white papers and news articles. There's videos, families talking about how they solved their situations, which can be very helpful. We also encourage families to just go on the internet and do some Googling. Look up how to pay for long-term care, how to pay for home care. And you'll find a lot of good, impartial, objective information, resources you can access. The trick to all of this is open communication. Have your eyes open for the clues. Be ready to communicate and work together as a family. Understand what the care needs are and the forms of care available, and then how are you going to pay for it?
All right. Hey, all out of time, and once again, the website is lifecarefunding.com. And Chris, thank you very much. Hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and appreciate you coming on here and giving us the signs that perhaps some of your get-togethers, you need to look at the people closer, especially if they're elderly, and just kind of, take care of them. You may be their first life rope, so to speak. Hey, thank you very much, Chris. We'll do this again.
Thanks for having me on.